Welcome to Future Forward Reports, the podcast where data meets executive action. Today, we unpack insights from Deloitte's 2025 Gen Z and Millennials survey, a report that challenges how organizations must evolve to meet the expectations of the workforce of tomorrow. From climate anxiety to career priorities, we're exploring what really drives next-gen talent. Let's dive in.
Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're really going deep. We're plunging into some fascinating findings from the Deloitte 2025 Gen Z and Millennial survey.
That's right. And this isn't just a small snapshot. We're talking about, over 23,000 responses, Gen Z and Millennials across 44 countries.
Yeah, it's huge.
Gives us a really comprehensive look at the generations who, are set to be almost 3/4 of the global workforce pretty soon by 2030.
Exactly. So our mission really is to cut through all the noise, maybe bypass some of the usual stereotypes you hear, and pull out the key insights. What's really driving these generations at work? Because the data shows it's way more complicated than just wanting the top job title.
Definitely. There are some genuinely surprising perspectives in here.
Okay, so let's start by setting the stage a bit. You hear a lot of labels, don't you, about Gen Z, Millennials.
Yeah.
Quiet quitting, entitled, maybe disengaged.
Oh, absolutely. All the time. And this survey, while it really challenges those simple takes, it paints a much more nuanced picture, shaped by when they started out.
Right.
Think about it, older millennials. They came into the workforce around the 2008 crash. That really changes your view on job security, maybe makes you question the traditional ladder.
Yeah, I can see that.
And then Gen Z, they're starting careers, boom, global pandemic. So well-being, flexibility, that's front and center from day one. These aren't small things. They really shape their outlook.
And you see that straight away in their career goals.
Yeah.
I mean, the ambition's there, but it looks different. Only, 6% of Gen Zs said getting a leadership role was their main goal? That's tiny.
It is. Instead of what pops up, things like learning and development, huge.
Yeah.
A good work-life balance, obviously, and having, clear paths to progress in their career, whatever that progress looks like for them.
Yeah.
For Gen Z, those were the top 3 reasons they'd pick one employer over another.
And that learning piece is really striking, isn't it? Kind of pushes back on that disengaged idea again. The survey shows 70% of Gen Z, almost 60% of millennials are actively skilling up every week or even more. And get this, a huge chunk, over 2/3 of Gen Z, almost 2/3 of millennials, they're doing this on their own time, outside work hours.
That level of personal investment, yeah, that's a really powerful finding. They're putting in the effort themselves.
Okay, so let's pivot a bit. How do they see development happening inside the workplace? Because the survey points to what looks like a pretty big manager gap.
Yeah, that's a key theme. So first, what skills do they think are critical to get ahead?
Right.
They're pretty much on the same page. Soft skills, communication, leadership, empathy, those are huge. Plus, time management, industry knowledge. Over 80% for both groups see these as really important.
Okay, so they know what they need. What kind of support do they want from their managers to actually build those skills and move forward?
The ask is really clear. Guidance and support, that's top of the list. 86% of Gen Z, 84% of millennials want that. They also want mentorship, someone who inspires them, motivates them, and importantly, someone who helps them actually set boundaries for work-life balance.
Okay, so that's the want. Here comes the gap, right? What are they actually getting day to day from their managers?
Yeah, the data shows a pretty different reality. They want that guidance, that support, but they feel like managers are mostly just overseeing tasks, checking boxes. The difference is stark. For Gen Z, that gap on getting guidance and support, it's a huge 26 percentage points between what they want and what they feel they receive.
Wow. And the survey kind of links this back to the managers themselves, doesn't it? They're facing their own pressures.
Exactly. Managers are saying they spend almost 40% of their time just fighting fires, dealing with immediate problems, and only 13% on actually developing their people.
Only 13%.
Yeah. Plus, over a third of managers admit they feel, unprepared for the people side of the job.
So it's not just about employee expectations, it's also about equipping managers.
Right. And the survey gets specific about how employers can help with learning. They want dedicated internal programs, maybe time set aside during work, financial help for outside courses, one-on-one mentoring, access to learning platforms, practical stuff.
That focus on skills and learning, it naturally leads to thinking about, traditional higher education. And the survey found nearly a third of both Gen Z and millennials decided not to go the university route.
Yeah, that's a pretty significant number. It suggests a real shift in thinking about that traditional path. The number one reason, money. Nearly 40% said cost was a big barrier.
No surprise there.
But it's not just the cost. About a quarter are choosing paths that don't need a degree, skilled trades, vocational training, that kind of thing, and another quarter want more flexibility, learning on their own terms.
And they have worries about the system itself, right? Beyond just the product.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, the cost is huge. About 40% worry about tuition. But there's also this skepticism about the ROI. Is it worth it? Are universities giving enough practical experience? Is the curriculum keeping up with how fast jobs are changing? Those are real concerns.
Now, the survey does show a link between higher ed and feeling financially secure. You're generally better off with a degree than just high school.
That's true. It's an important point. But here's where it gets super interesting. When they looked at job satisfaction, things like growth opportunities, learning, work-life balance, even feeling secure in your role,
Yeah.
there was hardly any difference based on education level. So whether you got skills through a trade, self-teaching, on the job, it seems to be leading to similar levels of satisfaction at work as a degree does.
Huh. That really challenges the norm. I remember a quote in there from a millennial woman saying, yeah, college was great for friends, but she doesn't use much. She learned for her job, and it definitely wasn't worth the cost.
Exactly. That feeling is a strong signal to businesses, isn't it? Maybe rethink those degree requirements for every single role. Invest more in apprenticeships, internal training, maybe even partner with universities to make things more practical.
Okay. Another massive force shaping everything, and something these generations are totally tuned into, is Gen AI. That's already changing things up.
Oh, for sure. The survey found over half, 57% Gen Z, 56% Millennial are already using it at work in some way. And that's climbing.
What are they using it for? Like specific tasks?
Yeah, common stuff mentioned was data analysis, creating content, design work, project management, even helping out with strategy development.
And the upsides. What do they see as the benefits?
They're actually quite positive about the potential. People using it say it improves their work quality, frees up their time for more interesting stuff, would lead to better work-life balance, makes them more efficient, productive, even boosts creativity. Lots of potential positives.
But there's always a but, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's some big worries, too.
Huge worries, yeah. The biggest fear, felt by almost 2/3 of both groups, is that Gen AI will just eliminate jobs. Plain and simple.
Right.
And just as many worry it'll make it harder for young people specifically to even get into the workforce, maybe by automating those entry-level jobs.
And that fear is actually changing behavior now. People are looking at jobs they think are, like, safer from AI, like trades or manual labor.
That's right. A big majority, over 2/3 in both groups, say they're considering those kinds of paths. And that's noticeably up from before. It shows a real anxiety about the future.
Yeah.
There was a quote from a millennial guy worried his whole profession might be irrelevant by the time he finishes his degree because of AI.
That's intense. Wow. That is intense. So it's interesting, then, that even with all this tech focus, they still see soft skills, empathy, leadership as more important for getting ahead than actual Gen AI skills.
That's such a critical takeaway for businesses. It
Yeah.
means, yeah, you need to know how to use the tools, the AI fluency is important, but the stuff that makes us human, that's what they see as the real long-term advantage.
Right.
So leaders need to be super clear about how AI changes roles, not just replaces them, and training needs to cover both the tech skills and those crucial soft skills.
Okay, let's pull back a bit and look at the bigger picture. The survey talks about this really helpful idea of a trifecta, balancing money, meaning, and well-being. That's like the foundation for happiness for these generations.
Yeah, that framework really helps make sense of a lot of their choices, even job hopping.
Yeah.
The fact that, about 1/3 of Gen Z, almost 1/5 of millennials plan to leave their job in the next 2 years. The survey frames it less as disloyalty and more as a strategic hunt for that better balance, finding the right mix of financial stability, work-life balance, purpose, and chances to grow.
And the data really shows how connected those three things, money, meaning well-being, actually are.
Totally. It shows financial security isn't just about the bank balance. It's strongly tied to better mental health and even feeling like your work matters.
Right.
And good well-being, that reinforces the feeling that your work has purpose. They're not separate buckets. They feed into each other.
Okay, let's dive into money first, because the survey is crystal clear. Cost of living is this huge, constant worry.
Yep. Number one concern. Again, 4th year in a row. Around 40% for both Gen Z and Millennials cite it as their top worry.
And the scary part is, it seems to be getting worse. Nearly half don't feel financially secure. That's up noticeably from last year. And over half are living paycheck to paycheck.
It's tough out there, and that pressure is why you see so many with side hustles, right? About a third have one. Mostly for income, yeah, but also for skills or hobbies or making an impact sometimes.
The survey brought up that phantom wealth idea, especially for millennials. Like maybe they own a home that's gone up in value on paper.
Right.
But with inflation, high costs for everything, they just don't feel secure day to day. Even the ones who are financially secure still worry about the cost of living.
It really shows the gap between like net worth and lived reality. There's a quote from a Gen Z guy that just nailed it. Ultimately, a job is a 9 to 5. You're doing it to survive. There's a lot of people who are just doing the job because they need money to survive. It kind of strips away the expectation that work has to be deeply meaningful when basic survival is the main driver.
And the survey draws a really strong line here. The employees most likely to recommend their company, the promoters, they are way more financially secure than average.
It just underlines it, doesn't it? Purpose and well-being matter immensely, but good pay and benefits, that's the bedrock. Businesses also need to think about flexible benefits, maybe financial education, to really help people cope.
Okay, second pillar, meaning how important is finding purpose at work for Gen Z and millennials?
Well, work is definitely a big part of their identity. Second only to friends and family, apparently. And purpose. Yeah, hugely important for job satisfaction, for well-being. Like 89% of Gen Z, 92% of millennials say it's important. Massive numbers.
But purpose can mean different things to different people, right?
Yeah.
It's not one size fits all.
Exactly. The survey really stresses that. For some, yeah, it's earning money, getting skills. For others, it's more about personal fulfillment or making some kind of positive impact on society.
Like that quote about aligning work with something meaningful beyond just the paycheck.
Right. And if they don't find that meaning, what happens then?
Yeah.
Well, it adds to stress, for one, and people will walk away. The survey found around 40–45% have either left jobs or turned down employers or projects because it didn't feel purposeful or didn't align with their ethics.
But here's where the nuance comes in again.
Mm-hmm.
What if they can't find that big world-changing purpose in their job?
This is a really key insight. Some will then prioritize getting paid well and having good work-life balance. Precisely so they have the time and money to find meaning and make an impact outside of work.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, there was a quote from a millennial guy saying, "The job is just the means to get the resources he needs to affect the change he wants to see elsewhere."
Interesting. So for businesses, it's like, yeah, to find your purpose, communicate it, but also get that individual motivations are different. Maybe the job's purpose is enabling someone to pursue their purpose elsewhere.
Exactly. It requires a more personalized view.
Okay, final pillar, well-being. And the survey makes it pretty clear workplace stress is a big problem.
Yeah, the picture isn't great. Fewer than 6 out of 10 rate their mental well-being as good or very good. And for Gen Z, mental health is their #2 societal concern right after cost of living.
What's driving the stress from their jobs?
Well, over 30% feel their job is a significant source of stress. The main things they point to: long hours, lack of recognition, toxic culture, feeling decisions are unfair. Sound familiar?
Yeah, those sound exactly like the things they want managers to help with more.
Precisely. The areas where they see the biggest gaps in manager support, setting boundaries, fostering positive culture, recognition, those are the exact things causing the most stress. It's all connected.
Now, there was some progress noted, right? More people feel their employer takes mental health seriously than last year.
Yes, that's true. About 62%, which is an uptick, but the stigma is still very real.
How so?
Well, while most, maybe 2/3, feel okay talking to their manager about mental health, about a quarter still worry about discrimination if they do. And telling point, many who needed time off for stress either didn't take it or they gave a different excuse. That shows the stigma is definitely still there.
So the takeaway for businesses can't just be, like, here's an app. It has to be deeper.
Exactly. It needs to shift towards prevention. Looking at the root causes: work design, workload, culture, and really training and empowering managers to spot issues and support their teams properly.
Okay, moving beyond personal well-being, the survey also highlights the environment. It's a huge source of anxiety, but also a motivator.
Yeah, about 2/3 said they felt worried or anxious about the environment just in the past month. And that's often linked to personally experiencing extreme weather. It's not abstract for them.
And that anxiety translates into action, right? both as consumers and employees.
It really does. As consumers, you see about 2/3 willing to pay more for sustainable stuff. It's influencing big purchases, EVs, home upgrades, and daily habits, like saving water. Lots of them research a company's green credentials before buying.
And in their careers, too.
Yep. About 20% check out a company's environmental policies before taking a job. And around 13–15% have actually switched jobs because of environmental concerns. Overall, 70% say a company's environmental stance is important when they're job hunting.
Wow. And they're pushing from within, too.
Yeah, almost half are actively pressuring their own employers to do more on the environment. Like one young woman said, businesses can have a way bigger impact than individuals, so employees are trying to push that lever.
But there's that disconnect in outlook, isn't there? Gen Z and millennials are pretty pessimistic. Almost half don't think the world's doing enough. But executives, over 90% are optimistic.
That gap is really telling. It's a challenge, but also a massive opportunity for companies. If you genuinely deliver on sustainability and you're transparent about it, you can meet consumer demand and attract the talent that really cares about these issues.
Okay, so let's pull all these threads together now. We've talked redefined ambition, learning, the manager gap, education shifts, AI anxiety and potential, that crucial trifecta of money, meaning well-being, the financial crunch, the search for purpose, workplace stress, environmental motivation. What does the survey ultimately say makes a workplace somewhere these generations would actually recommend? What makes an employee promoter?
It boils down to hitting those key notes we've discussed. The employees most likely to recommend their company. They report significantly higher satisfaction across the board. They see strong opportunities for growth and learning.
Okay.
They feel the pay and benefits are competitive. They have good work-life balance.
Makes sense. What else?
They feel their work is meaningful. They feel empowered to drive change. Their personal values align with the company's values. They believe their employer genuinely takes mental health seriously. And overall, their sense of well-being is much higher.
So it really comes back to that trifecta, plus growth and impact.
Exactly. A workplace that delivers on financial security, provides meaningful work, genuinely supports well-being, and offers chances to learn, grow, and make a difference. That seems to be the winning formula for attracting and keeping Gen Z and millennials engaged.
So the picture we get from this survey is, well, it's complex. It's an ambitious, purpose-driven workforce, yes. But they're also dealing with some very real pressures. Cost of living, the shadow of AI, all while being deeply focused on their own well-being and the planet's.
Yeah, they're clearly looking beyond just the traditional career ladder or the paycheck. They're searching for that holistic, balanced financial stability, yes, but also meaningful engagement, genuine well-being, and constant opportunities to grow and have a positive impact, whether that's directly in the job or enabled by the job.
You've been listening to Future Forward Reports, exploring key insights from Deloitte's 2025 Gen Z and Millennial survey. If your leadership strategy still assumes that Gen Z and Millennials will adapt to the system, think again. For more data-driven briefings on the future of work, don't forget to follow and share. Until next time, stay curious, stay human, and stay future ready.